Hi, welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. And again, just a reminder of the takeaway from that paragraph where Jesus says to Saul, that's before he changed his name, why are you persecuting me? So let's be clear here. Let's be sure we understand that what's really going on here is that when Christians are intimidated, when Christians are sued, when Christians are fired because of their Christian faith. Got a story in the stack about a Christian coach, I believe, in North Carolina. Yeah, here it is. A football coach who has been ordered by North Carolina school officials to stop leading his team in prayer. This is Mooresville High School coach. His name is Hal Capps, and some atheists, our friends at the Freedom from Religion Foundation, got a hold of him and said he's violating the First Amendment by praying with his players. Now, we've talked about this before, but every time this comes up, I want to drive this home. I want to drive it into your brain with a sledgehammer. It is impossible for a football coach to violate the First Amendment by praying with his players because he is not Congress. Remember that the First Amendment, as given to us by the founders, only restrains the actions of Congress. Only Congress can violate the First Amendment of the Constitution. Football coach is not Congress. He cannot possibly, historically, legally, constitutionally violate the First Amendment. But he was accused, and I mean, this is not an accusation to me. This is commendation. Prayed with football players at team events, encourages them to go to church, the scoundrel, and encourages them to become baptized. And this institution, this Freedom from Religion Foundation, falsely accuses him of violating the Constitution, which, of course, is impossible if we are operating under the Constitution that was given to us by the founders, not the one that's been mangled by activist courts. So they complaining that he organizes, leads, participates in prayers and other religious proselytizing before, during, or after games and practices. In other words, he's a devout, sold-out follower of Jesus Christ, and that is now becoming a criminal offense in the United States. Now, I hope you heard that little spot over the break about what we're going to be doing for the next couple of weeks is encouraging you to partner with us to rescue children that are living in the red light districts of Mumbai, India. You know, we read about these horrible, horrible situations, and you want to know if there is something that you can do. Well, here it is. We've got these children that are victims of all sorts of abuse in Mumbai, India. They live in the red light district. They're often the children of prostitutes or who are being trafficked into the red light district. They often, especially the girls, will grow up to become involved in the prostitution industry themselves. They'll start them in Mumbai, India as young as 12, 13 years of age. They get stuck in that life, stuck in the red light district. They eventually will have children of their own who will be brought into that same horrible, horrible environment. And India Partners is working to provide safe houses for these girls, for these children that are growing up. They'll even traffic girls as young as 8 in these red light districts. So for $7.08 a day, you can provide food, clothing, shelter, education for these children, medical attention, opportunities to hear about the gospel. Just for $7.08, you can provide one day of safety, rescue, and care for a child that right now is trapped in the red light district of Mumbai. $35, that'll take care of a child for 5 days. $50 will take care of a child for a week. $100 will take care of a child for 2 weeks. A little over $200 will take care of a child for a month. Goes right up to $2,560. You can take care of a child for an entire year. So call 800-678-9962, 800-678-9962, or you can go to afr.net and get all the information that you need. So here's an opportunity to put some feet to our faith. Now, I was talking about the fact in the open that ultimately our hope has got to be in spiritual awakening to come to the United States. But in the meantime, we have practical political problems that do need solution. And I believe that men of faith, men of courage, have the answer to the political problems that we are facing. Now, I've got a column. It's up at rightlyconcerned.com. If you want to go read it, rightlyconcerned.com. It's where I post my columns. And you can go there and read this column. And what I do in this column is describe what I believe is our last best hope on the political arena. Our last best hope, obviously, is God himself and the work of the Holy Spirit. But looking specifically at our political landscape, what is our last best hope? And I would argue that it's not Congress. I think most people in America have given up on Washington. You know, we know that liberals in D.C. clearly are driven by an anti-American, anti-God, anti-constitutional governing philosophy. That's what animates them. So there's no hope there that we can find from liberals in Washington. They want to get rid of God. They wanted to get him out of their platform, get him out of the building where the Democratic National Committee was meeting. So they've got no use for God, no use for the scriptures, no use for moral values. So we're getting no help politically from liberals. Now, conservatives, with rare exceptions, just don't have the masculine strength or the nerve to do anything about what liberals are doing with their anti-God political philosophy. So there's not a lot of reason to be optimistic. They're getting ready to sell us out on immigration and on amnesty. So where can we turn where we can find some practical, constitutional, legal, ethical, moral way to deal with some of these political problems? And I want to suggest that these are found in the conservative governors of America, conservative governors who will uphold the Constitution. That is our last best hope of saving the constitutional republic. You know, you look right now, we just have a boatload of King Georges. Remember, the king against whom we declared our independence was King George III back in 1776. Now, we got a boatload right now of King Georges. We've got one sitting in the Oval Office. We have 9 of them, or 5 of them, 4 of them sitting on the Supreme Court. Virtually every bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. is a petty little King George. So they're exercising right now a virtually totalitarian and dictatorial control over every aspect of American life. And you can just feel this tyranny squeezing the life right out of us. This is what triggered the original Declaration of Independence. Well, where can we find people who will craft a second Declaration of Independence? And I would say that it's the governors of the states. And this is an antidote that's preserved for us by the founders in the Constitution. And what I'm suggesting, what we need, I've talked about this before, but it's worth revisiting. What we need is governors who will actually uphold the Constitution of the United States. Realize that every governor took an oath, and the state legislatures over which he presides or leads, every one of those lawmakers, including the governor, took an oath to uphold and defend not only their own state constitution, but the Constitution of the United States. And what I'm suggesting is we need governors who will defy unconstitutional edicts that come from the White House, that come from the Supreme Court, that come from Congress, and come from federal bureaucrats. So they get an edict from one of these bureaucrats or from President Obama himself or from the Supreme Court that clearly is unconstitutional, that clearly violates the Constitution of the United States. For instance, this edict against this football coach. There's no constitutional violation there whatsoever. Now, I don't know how North Carolina's Constitution read, but that's an issue for the North Carolina Constitution. But there's no violation of the federal Constitution. So what we need is a governor in North Carolina that will say to that school district, look, you let that football coach pray. You let him pray. He's not violating the Constitution. I've read the First Amendment. It doesn't prohibit prayer. In fact, what it does is it tells Congress you can't interfere with the free exercise of religion anywhere in the United States. So you go right ahead and let that coach pray with his players. You go right ahead and let him encourage them to go to church. You go right ahead and let him baptize players that come to faith in Christ. I got your back. I won't let anybody stop him from doing it. I'll send the state troopers out there to protect him and keep anybody from trying to interfere with his free exercise of religion. Now, that's what we need. Now, what I'm suggesting is when we have a governor that does that, he is not violating the Constitution. He is upholding the Constitution. And we've been over this before. This is review, but we more often need to be reminded than instructed. Remember, all of the powers of action in the central government are found in Article 1, Section 8. There's about 19 powers of action that the central government has. We, the people, delegated these powers and this authority to the central government. The states created the central government. We said, you are our servant. We are your master. Here are the tasks that we are delegating to you. We, as the master, as your boss, We are delegating these responsibilities to you, and we expect you to serve us by faithfully discharging these functions and these powers, about 19 of them in there. Now, here's the point. If a power of action is not prescribed in Article 1, Section 8 for the federal government, then it has no moral, ethical, legal, or constitutional authority to carry it out. So, according to the 9th and 10th Amendments, every power of action that has not been delegated to the federal government in Article 1, Section 8 is a power that belongs to the states or to the people themselves. Now, let me give you just 5 examples off the top of my head, just right up front. There's no mention in Article 1, Section 8 of the power of the federal government to control the issue of abortion or marriage or health care or education or the environment. So in other words, not one of the 3 branches of the federal government has any authority whatsoever morally, legally, ethically, or constitutionally to prescribe behavior or dictate policy in these areas to the states. None. So we need governors who will fulfill their oath of office by defying unconstitutional edicts from any branch of the central government, including the judiciary. And I want to be clear on this. In so doing, they would not be violating the Constitution. They would, in fact, be upholding the Constitution and fulfilling their oath of office. Not to do so is in fact, to violate their oath of office, because if they took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States, and then they let some bureaucrat or some judge in D.C. shred the Constitution and impose that tyranny on them, then they are violating their oath of office. They're not upholding, not defending the Constitution. Now, right now, we got 26 states that are under the control of the Republican Party. The governor is Republican, and both state houses are in control of the Republican Party. Those 26 states provide the opportunity for us to get rid of this life-strangling chokehold of tyrannical central government, just like the founders did in 1776. So on the marriage issue, I mentioned it before, but we need a government, for example. Could be Rick Perry down in Texas, Bobby Jindal, Louisiana, maybe Phil Bryant, state of Mississippi, who will refuse an order even from a federal judge to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. So we need a governor that'll prohibit county clerks in his state from issuing any marriage licenses that are not in accordance with his state's constitution and state law. So Republican governors, we're looking to you. Where are you? Focal Point, AFR Talk.